Let's now understand how do an image form in a plane mirror. Let's say this is the mirror that you have M dash, and this is the back side of the mirror. Okay, let's take an object M here. Okay, now there are various rays which come from M. So normally you would have rays coming in all the directions from M, assuming it is passing on light. But for the purpose of formation of image in a plane mirror, we just need two of them. You don't need a whole lot of light rays. So let's say there are two light rays which went out from O. Let's call these light rays as P, Q. Okay? Now, both these light rays will also get reflected back. But what we learned in the previous video is that these are the rays of incidence or incident ray. Now there is a normal, which is a line which forms a right angle with the mirror at the point when the particular ray interacts with the mirror. Similarly, for this ray also, there will be a normal ray which will be formed. Let's call this as N1, let's call this as N2. Now the angle which is formed by this incident ray with the normal, let's call this as I1 and let's call this one as I2. A similar angle will be formed by these rays which is the angle of reflection. Let's call this as R1 and let's call this as R2. But because these rays are moving in tangent direction, they will never meet each other, and therefore there cannot be an image formation which can happen on this side. So what actually happens in such a case is that instead of meeting this side, these rays appear to meet at a point behind the mirror. Let's call this point as I, and I is actually the point where the image is formed. Okay, so let's say if you had a person who was sitting here, let's call this point as L, or the location of the person who is trying to view all this. Let's say this is his eye. He would notice that the image is formed somewhere over here. Now please note that this is not a real image. This is a virtual image. Okay. Now the other point that you need to know is that because this is a mirror and it is polished, actually there are no light rays which can move behind this mirror. So then what are these light rays that we have seen here? These are imaginary rays. In actual context, these rays do not exist. Why? Because rays cannot actually pass behind the mirror, because the surface of the mirror, as I showed you here, which is by these lines, is polished or it's painted. So there is no light which can actually pass through the back surface of the mirror, but it only appears that these rays are moving back. And the image formation actually takes place here, or it rather appears that the image is formed here. So if a person P is located here and he watches it, these rays of light will be coming to him. But because these reflected rays, as we call it, these are the reflected rays, they do not meet in the front of the plane mirror. They meet and converge, or rather appear to converge, behind the mirror, and we see that the image is formed.